Good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History. Signed, sealed, remembered, man and wife. We're at a wedding. We've been there for many days, but we're finally through the ceremony. We've gotten through the press conference, and now it's time to eat our cake. But we're going to slide back in time just for a minute, because it's been a very long day, and it started at midnight when we boarded the Christina, Frank Sinatra's plane in Las Vegas, to fly here, or not in Las Vegas, in Palm Springs, to fly here to Las Vegas so that Elvis could get married at the Aladdin Hotel. Hi, Gunn. Hi, Colleen. Thank you guys so much for coming. This song is Christina at Midnight.
Slipped out the back with a bullhorn harp over stucco walls where the flashbulbs stop. Joni's got colors, Joe's got the cash, Danny K's in the cockpit, burning jet fuel fast. Sinatra's bird, she's purring like a prayer. Christina's wings cut the desert air. Red's not on the list, he's pacing the floor, while the collar's got the press in a ballroom wall. Rona's got a sin and a Polaroid grin, but the ring's in a case with the diamonds grinning in. $15 for a license and a lie, while the best men shine with a bullseye tie. Blinded by the flight, wrapped up like a vow in the Vegas night. Blinded by the flight, when a heartbreak hits in the morning light. Oh, we were flying on a secret stream to a chapel dream, but the brother got burned by the wedding machine. Palm Springs whispers, Aladdin's got the suit, but the real show's hidden in a velvet beat. Mama's flown in, Daddy's eyes are wide, while the Memphis boys are split on the right. Memphis opens up his velvet chest, bullhead complaints, diamonds in the west. But Red's got a wound that won't sit still, he's shouting down love from the windowsill. Color's got a script and a phantom plan, he's dealing out silence with a sleight of hand. You got too many, he says with a grin, let go of the love if you wanna win. Blinded by the flight, wrapped up like a vow in the Vegas night. Blinded by the flight, when the heartbreak hits you in the morning light. Oh, we were flying on a secret stream to a chapel dream, but the brother got burned by the wedding machine. Christina's wheels kissed the tarmac clean, and the ring was slipped before the world had seen. But love, oh love, it don't run on time, it breaks in the silence, not the headline.
Thank you for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today we're hearing echoes of the wedding between Elvis and Priscilla, May 1st, 1967, in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Hi, Gunn. Hi, Colleen. Hi, Marion. Hi, Anna. And I did find some footage of the wedding that I thought you guys might have fun watching. Let's try watching it again. I'm going to change a couple of settings here. so that maybe we can watch it a little slower. Get a little more of the detail. I think we can see a lot of people and places here. Now they're in Las Vegas. You can see the Tropicana. Now I once stayed at the Tropicana, but it was a giant building then. It wasn't that original building. There's the Aladdin entrance. We're seeing it from the opposite side of what we saw in the other pictures. This is Priscilla, and she's going to the room where they're going to get married. Joni is holding up her train. You can see Elvis and George Klein, and they're headed down the hallway past the security guard. That's Marty Lacker with his slightly bald head. That's how you can tell it's him. Priscilla's sister Michelle is right on the other side of her. The judge from the Supreme Court, that's him. He's the one doing the marrying. Marty just kissed Priscilla. Looks like it almost killed him. Joe Esposito is there. And they had a little bit of trouble getting Priscilla's veil away from her face. But now it's back, and Elvis and Priscilla are engaged in a very long kiss. Michelle looks almost uncomfortable, and now Jody is hugging Elvis, Jody Esposito. And Priscilla and Elvis are greeting all their guests who were there to witness them. Vernon is overcome with emotion, gives Elvis a huge hug. And then they move out into the banquet hall. It sure looks like it's adjoining to me. Unless they're coming in from a hallway somewhere, but that looks like they came out of that room where they just got married. The entire party follows them. And they sit at these tables that have been set up at the front for the press conference. We can see the reporters and the photographers. Priscilla and Elvis hold hands as they sit at the table. They're all smiles. Of course, there's no sound to go with this video, but it's still fun to actually be able to see it. Priscilla looks very happy. So does Elvis. And they're probably getting asked some questions right now. Priscilla's just smiling. Elvis looks like he's showing Priscilla's wedding ring. There's a lot of pictures being taken. Priscilla's nails look very nice. They're painted pink. And Elvis gives Priscilla a kiss on the cheek for the reporters. That's not quite the kiss May Mann talked about when she described the kiss. There must be more reporter questions coming in. and they're posing for some pictures, putting their faces together. Those are going to be the pictures that are on all the newspaper and magazine covers. Unfortunately, it's too blurry in the background to tell who all the people were that were standing at the end of the table, but I think all of those people were connected to Elvis. The people in the front are all reporters. But you know who you haven't seen is Colonel Parker. And like Keith keeps pointing out, we don't see any pictures of Colonel Parker. But we know he's here because he says something to these people. And he breaks it all up so that Elvis and Priscilla can go on with the wedding, but he's not here. That might have been him who just stepped out of the corner in the shadows. You can see the big Aladdin sign. And that's really it for that piece. Now, I do have one other piece of film for us to look at. From Las Vegas that day, when they went to cut the cake, which would have been, I think, right after that press conference, especially from what we just saw. They came out of the room. They did the press conference. I don't know. Now, in this one, they flipped the order so that they did the cake first. But I feel like they had done that part first, the press conference, and then they went to do the cake. But that's all of that little clip. What'd you guys think? Was that fun? And Anna says that she doesn't think it was a good thing, the marriage, but they do make a nice looking couple. And while all that was going on that we just watched, Red West says, I just stayed in the darn room and heard about the marriage on television. They were married by a Supreme Court justice in a room at the Aladdin. What a kick in the teeth. I didn't go near the reception. Marion says that was amazing. So those of you who have been with me through nearly or most of this entire wedding journey, these last many wedding videos, do you feel like you've been to the wedding? Do you feel like you were almost there to see Elvis get married in 1967? Because that's what I'm kind of trying to do with the channel, so I hope that you do. And while all that was going on, while that whole press conference thing was happening, when we saw all those people come out of that door, well, Billy and Joe Smith, they slid out of the room. They snuck on down to their room, and they changed clothes. Because they're wearing these uncomfortable wedding clothes, right? Dress clothes. So they headed on down and they changed their clothes in the room. And Colleen says, yes, it does feel like we were there. Thank you so much, Colleen. I'm glad that it does. But Billy and Joe, they were there, but they weren't there. Because they slid on out of the room and on down to the casino. Because they were young. Joe was 20 years old. She, I don't think, had ever gambled before. I'm not even sure if she was legally supposed to be gambling at that point in time. But she was about a year younger than Priscilla. So she might have been right on the edge of 21 or 21. She tells the story that she was 20. And Anna says that was great footage, that she really enjoyed it. And Marion says that at the press conference, it felt very uncomfortable and that she would not have liked it. yeah, I think I would have just liked to move on to the reception in my own wedding, but Elvis had to do the public thing. I think he might have enjoyed some of the public attention a little bit, but I don't know that Priscilla did at that moment. I think she came to enjoy it a little later. But Billy and Joe, they headed on out into the casino. The one that is just beyond the doors that we can see in the pictures of the Aladdin. Because you're going to walk right into that casino. And the Smiths were gambling and they were having a wonderful time. And they received a page over the casino loudspeakers requesting their immediate attendance in the Blue Room. Now, the way Billy tells it, he says Elvis had noticed that they were not at the reception. Well, why did Elvis notice that Billy wasn't at the reception? Because they went to take all those pictures next to the cake that we looked at in the previous episode. So they're taking these pictures, and Elvis is looking around, and he notices that Billy's not there. Now, I can't prove that. I'm just guessing. But I've been to a lot of weddings, and there comes a point where you got to take these pictures, and there is always somebody that's not there. And it's always noticed that they are not there. Now, here we can see Elvis and Priscilla eating the cake. Elvis is feeding Priscilla a piece. This is one of those traditions that you do at a wedding. The bride feeds the groom and the groom feeds the bride. But like I said, don't ever eat one of those red roses because they are bitter. And in this picture, we can see a portion of the wedding party, including Charlie Hodge and Joe Esposito, Priscilla and Elvis and Vernon. Vernon, who was so happy in that video clip that we saw. That's probably the most emotion any of us will ever see with Vernon, other than at the time that Gladys had passed away. He was sitting on the steps next to Elvis. And of course, when Elvis himself passed away. But happiness. This was probably it. And I'm thinking this might be one of those pictures that Elvis wanted to take that Billy wasn't there for. That he's a little upset that Billy's not there, because we can see Richard Davis, Jerry Schilling, George Klein. Freddie Bienstock is, I think we would call that photo bombing the picture these days. Joe Esposito. Charlie Hodge, who apparently doesn't understand a picture is being taken because he cannot take his eyes off Priscilla. And Marty Lacker. But no Billy. Because Billy is out in the casino getting a page that he should be in the Blue Room. Now, others have called this the banquet room. And I think others have called it the Aladdin room. And the way Billy tells the story is they didn't know what the Blue Room was or where to go. Now it feels to me, now I don't know how they got out of that suite that they were in when Elvis got married. Maybe they went out through another exit. But if you came out through the exit that we saw in the video, it feels like they would have known where the Blue Room was, but maybe they got lost inside the casino, inside the building. It is very easy to get lost inside an Las Vegas casino if you've never been in one. At least any that I've been in. You get twisted around because of the way that they designed the casinos. I'm assuming that started way back in the 50s, in the late 50s. And in a newer model like the Aladdin, it might have been somewhat sophisticated enough to have a maze of slot machines and gambling tables. Hi, Luann. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. We're still at the wedding. Yeah, we've still got a piece of cake for you. So Billy and Joe, they get that page. They are looking everywhere for the blue room. They finally find it. As they try to go inside, hotel security, somebody connected to the hotel that's letting people in and out of this room, well, into this room. They say, hey, we don't think you're supposed to be in this room. Are you sure you're at the right place? And Billy and Joe say, well, of course we're at the right place. Elvis wants us here. I'm Elvis's cousin. Now, the reason that they're being asked these questions is because they're wearing t-shirts and blue jeans. Because they went back to their room to change. Now, everybody else in this room, they're dressed up for this wedding. Even the guests are dressed up for the wedding. Everybody's wearing dress clothes. But not Billy and Joe. They're wearing blue jeans and t-shirts. At least according to how they tell the story. And so they had some trouble getting back inside. But then they were there, and I think that's another reason that they may not be in any of these pictures. And Marion says that time flies so fast in the casino. Yes, it does. Unless you're out of money. And then it's the slowest time in the world. Now, here's a fairly amazing picture of a lot of other people that were at the wedding. And I know most of them here. I think I can go through. Down, the people who are kneeling in the front. We can start with Charlie Hodge. Everybody knows Charlie. He's over on the right-hand side next to the cake. Then we can move over to Joe Esposito. Everybody knows Joe. He's kneeling in front of Priscilla. The person next to Joe, it looks like Joe's got his hand on his shoulder. It's an older gentleman, and it almost looks like he's wearing a flat top. That is Priscilla's father, her stepfather, Colonel Blue. And next to him, that's Priscilla's brother, Donnie. So there is a picture, and we saw somebody's face, like a portion of their face, and none of us have been able to figure out who it is. Some people thought it was Gene Smith, but it's not Gene because he's not here. And it's not Billy. If it is Billy, it's a fairly distorted picture because I'm pretty sure it's not Billy. I thought maybe it was Donnie. It's not Donnie because this is what Donnie looks like. I'll have to go find that picture again and pull it up someday so we can take a look at it again. But that is her brother. And then we go back to the top row, all the way back to the right, because we know Vernon. That's Elvis's father. And of course, Elvis. And we got Priscilla. And next to Priscilla is her mother. That is Priscilla's mother. I do not have her name written down. I want to say it's Anne, but I'm thinking that's incorrect. But it's Priscilla's mother. And next to Priscilla's mother is Dee Presley, who is married to Vernon and is Elvis's stepmother. Michelle, Priscilla's sister, is next to Dee. So you get a better idea of Michelle's age here. We saw her a little bit in the video. I think she appears older and more elegant in the video. But in this picture, she appears closer to like a 14 to 16-year-old girl. I don't know how old she really is. I do believe she's still living at home with her parents. And that's one of the reasons she's here at the wedding. But she's also the maid of honor. Now there's somebody with their faces between Michelle and the lady who is blonde. The blonde lady is Joni Esposito. Oh, I think the lady between them is Sandy. I believe that's Sandy Schilling, who is married to Jerry. And I think it's Jerry's face that we could just barely see cut off at the edge of the picture that's behind her. So I think the faces that you may not be as familiar with as everybody else would be the Colonel, who is Priscilla's father, Donnie, her brother, Joni Esposito with the blonde hair, Sandy, who, if you go to my post, recently there were posts where you could hear and see Sandy from just a few months ago. She hasn't ever talked about Elvis to anybody in the public for 60 years since this wedding, since she left Jerry, or they split up, or however that happened. But she has beautiful memories of Elvis that she shares in those videos. But you can see how lovely she was here. You probably aren't as familiar with Michelle. Some people don't know Dee, so that might be surprising for you. Although if you've been following the series, you've definitely seen Dee. And then Priscilla's mother. I think a lot of people, a lot of fans, they're not familiar with Priscilla's mother. And Luann says that Michelle does not have much of a bridesmaid's look. Yeah, I'm wondering if she changed her clothes too or something. Or maybe if we went back to the video, but I see what you're saying. And because usually they would wear the same kind of dresses and have the same small flowers in their hand. We might need to go back to that wedding video and watch it again. And it look just for that. We've looked at this bottle once before. But it's custom labeled for the Las Vegas Aladdin Hotel and Country Club. And I think he's called it a country club because Milton Prell, he put in a golf course next door. And now that makes it like a country club. And it was signed on the label by Elvis and Priscilla. Elvis wrote, and you can't see this on the label. I'm looking at it right now. I don't think it's visible anywhere on this picture. Or if it is, it's not... Well, it is. It's on either side of the big circle with the Aladdin symbol in it. And it appears kind of greenish. And they signed on either side. But it's really illegible and impossible to see on the picture. And Luann says, must be parents for the photographs first. Right, so that they're doing probably different sets of photographs, I would think. And in this one, they got the parents. But this bottle, Elvis wrote, May 1st, 1967, Mr. and Mrs. Elvis Presley. And Priscilla wrote, Love, Mrs. Elvis Presley. So they both signed it. They both wrote something similar, but slightly different. One said Mr. and Mrs. Elvis Presley, and the other said, love, Mrs. Elvis Presley. This is a picture that is signed by Elvis and also Priscilla again, I believe. This picture says to Marie, thank you for the gift, Elvis Presley. Now, what I don't know is, was this picture given out to people who brought gifts to this wedding and who attended the wedding, or was this picture given out to people who attended the reception that comes on May 29th, about 28 days from now, when they're back at Memphis? And then maybe somebody named Marie came and they gave them this as a token of their thanks. I kind of believe, and this is not with the provenance of the piece, but the Marie that we know was at the wedding is married to Colonel Parker. It's Marie Parker. And we know that Elvis loves Marie, and that Marie would definitely have brought a gift for Elvis. So I kind of think that this is, he gave this to Marie Parker, but can't prove that. Pure speculation on my part. Other than that, it says, to Marie, thank you for the gift, Elvis Presley. And the other signature says, thanks for everything from both of us, Elvis and Priscilla. I believe that one's written by Priscilla, and instead of saying Mrs. Elvis Presley this time, she has said Elvis and Priscilla. And Anna says that would be a cool bottle to have. The listing also said it was a half bottle of champagne. So I don't know if that means it's still half full. I'm not sure why somebody would want it to still be half full. I mean, I could understand a completely full, unopened bottle of champagne, but a half bottle of champagne, or maybe that size, is considered to be a half bottle. I'm not a champagne or wine drinker, so I don't know. Now, some people have asked if Vernon Presley and Dee Presley are both at this wedding, where are the Stanley boys? Well, here's the way that David Stanley remembers it. And there's 3 Stanley boys. There's Billy, there's David, and there's Ricky. David's the youngest. And he says, I remember one instance in 1967 when Elvis was out of town and Dee and Vernon were in Las Vegas. I got up and got dressed like any other day, and that afternoon I was picked up by Mrs. Wilma Sparkman, the housekeeper who took care of my brothers and me when Dee and Vernon were not around. As we prepared to drive from Whitehaven Junior High, Mrs. Sparkman said to me, have you heard that your brother has gotten married? No, I said. Well, he got married today, she said. So David Stanley and the other 2 Stanley boys, they were not at the wedding. They were back in Memphis, moving through their regular lives. Apparently they had school that day. And David found out that Elvis got married from the housekeeper, the woman who took care of him, when Dee and Vernon were not around. And after this reception, Elvis and Priscilla are going to fly back to Palm Springs, and they're going to end up honeymooning there for a few days. I get the feeling that they didn't really have a honeymoon planned. They had the wedding planned through the Colonel, and then that was basically it. Once you got back to Palm Springs, you're on your own, kids. You know, they had to decide what to do after that. And they had some different ideas, but they did stay in Palm Springs for a few days. And here we can see that Elvis and Priscilla got the traditional rice throwing, which at the end of weddings, it used to be traditional to throw rice at the bride and groom. At some point, there became what I believe is now thought of as an urban myth. Could be wrong. You have to do your own research on this. But this idea that if birds ate this rice, it would expand in their stomach, it would kill the birds. I mean, people have been doing this for like 30 or 40 years or more by the time this idea came forward. But over the next 20 years, people stopped throwing rice altogether and they started throwing other things. So I don't know that rice is thrown at brides and grooms anymore. But I'm also not sure that the reason that it stopped was a legitimate reason. So if you know, throw it in the comments. Let me know. And here we get another picture of the entire party. This is a much bigger picture. I don't think... Yeah, I don't think that this picture had any caption or anything with it, other than like it was Elvis's wedding. And I think this is the same picture that we just saw, but now we get to see more of it. But this one's in black and white. Let me go back a second. Yeah, I think this is the exact same picture, but this one's in color. And if you look at Priscilla's face, it's the exact same picture. We can see a little further over to the left now. And you can see that behind Sandy is Jerry Schilling. And next to him is Richard Davis. You can see Joni Esposito's full face now, as well as her shoulder. And the face, the person next to her, the man, I believe that's Harry Levitch, the jeweler. Could be wrong about that. We saw him in another picture, and I think that's him. And this is when they get back to Palm Springs. Elvis carries Priscilla over the threshold, which is a traditional thing that grooms do with brides when they first arrive at their home as a married couple. Joe Esposito says, Elvis and Priscilla changed their clothes and we all flew back to Palm Springs where we enjoyed a group honeymoon for 3 or 4 days, beginning that night with a wonderful home-cooked wedding dinner. Now what Joe doesn't say, who cooked that dinner? Home cooked, but not sure who. I guess that means Elvis's staff. Priscilla says, I was both exhausted and relieved when we finally returned to Palm Springs aboard Frank Sinatra's Learjet, the Christina. There were more photographers and reporters waiting for us as we stepped off the plane, and others were parked outside of our home. So they went home on the same jet that brought them, and it was less than 24 hours. But they came, an unmarried couple, and they went home on that jet, a married man and wife. Frank Sinatra's Learjet, the Christina. Marty Lacker says later that afternoon, Elvis and Priscilla flew back to Palm Springs for a short honeymoon in a house he had leased. Now, the house he had leased, I'm sure a lot of people have seen pictures of it. It's a very famous house. A lot of people think of it as Elvis's honeymoon house, but he'd been leasing it since 1966. So if he leased it for the honeymoon, he was thinking very far ahead. It's also the same house that we've seen the interior of in the pictures of the party that occurred the day before the wedding. So we saw them all at a dinner, and there were a whole lot of pictures of that one particular dinner, and they had a rock wall behind them. That's this house. That's where they have flown back to. Elvis doesn't own it. He does lease it, as Marty indicates. Priscilla Presley says Elvis joked with Joe Esposito, asking, "Is this the way it's done?" And he carried me across the threshold of our house, singing the Hawaiian wedding song. He stepped and gave me a long, loving kiss, then proceeded to carry me up the stairs to our bedroom, the whole crowd teasing and applauding. And Marion says, or let me back up here into the chat. I might have missed a few. Luann says, I have never seen rice throwing before, only confettis. Yeah, here we did rice. It was always rice. When I was a kid, it was always rice up till I was about 14. And Marion says, that story is hard to believe. His brother didn't know about the wedding day. Did I understand that right? Let me think back to what I've said here. Oh, that D. Stanley did not, or that David Stanley, yeah. But let's remember, David Stanley is a young boy. I do not know off the top of my head how old David was when he came to live with Elvis in 1960, but I think it was like 4 or 5 years old. So if we take 5 and we add 7, he's 12. And so as a 12-year-old boy, I don't know that I would have had any interest in anyone that got married, no matter who they were or their wedding. It would just have been an ordeal to me to have to go to the wedding. Not that I didn't go to plenty of weddings, but you had to get dressed and fancy. They always had some nice food, but it was always better to get home and, have your fun stuff, whatever that was. I'm sure David had his own ideas of fun and what he wanted to do. His brothers would have been slightly older. I think this would have put Ricky at like 13 or 14 and Billy at like 15 or 16. Could be wrong on those by a couple of years either way, but it just gives you an idea that these were young, these were still children. And what's happening over in Las Vegas, I guess Dee and Vernon just felt it'd be better if they left him at home. And really, children shouldn't be in a casino anyway, right? And I don't know that there are any other young people. I'm thinking Priscilla's brother is probably like the youngest person there. I don't know that, but that's what we've seen in the pictures. And Gunn says that in Sweden they did rice too. Do you still do rice and gun, or has that disappeared into the mist of time? And Marion says, I am a girl. I would have felt like it was my own wedding. Mm-hmm. And so Elvis has carried Priscilla across the threshold. And Marty Lacker says, the rest of us went back on the DC-3. We had to carry the remaining cake. Now, they had a 6-tier cake, according to some of them. And that makes you wonder how much cake was left out of 100 people. But it must have been significant because Marty remembers it. So they had to carry the remaining cake. And you also have to wonder why take the cake at all. I'm sure Elvis doesn't care if the cake comes back. Like, that's probably the last thing on Elvis's mind. He would have preferred it all get eaten there, I would think. And so wouldn't notice if you brought it back or not. I have to assume the guys and their wives are going to eat this cake. I'm thinking Elvis isn't a guy that does a lot of leftovers. But he says they had to carry the remaining cake, the flowers, the liquor, and other things which had not been used at the wedding back to Palm Springs with us. So again, why do they need to bring the flowers back? I don't think they're going to leave them at Elvis's house. I don't think he'd, I don't know. And the liquor, Elvis doesn't drink liquor, so I'm sure he doesn't care whether the liquor makes it back to the house. That's for somebody else to use. But Marty's kind of complaining that they bring these things. That's the way I feel about what Marty's saying here. Could be wrong. Marty might just be giving us some odd details that they're bringing back stuff from the wedding back to Palm Springs with us. And Marty says the tension in that plane was thick. None of the guys would talk to me, and I had to carry all that stuff on the plane myself and get it into the house. No one offered to help. So I feel that I was correct when I said Marty was complaining about it, because now they're back at the house and Marty's complaining no one will help him take this stuff in. Well, I guess if they're not going to use any of it, like, again, maybe these guys are thinking the same thing. I don't want any of this leftover cake, and I don't drink any liquor, so I don't want to bring any liquor in the house, and I don't need these flowers. Somehow Marty's decided these things have to come back. And now he's having trouble carrying them all by himself and getting them into the house. Marty says that as soon as we arrived at the house, most of the guys left for Los Angeles. They were mad as hell. Now, Marty doesn't say what they're mad about. I guess they're upset that they didn't get to see the wedding ceremony, but they must have hid it pretty well during the reception. They all look pretty happy in those pictures that we saw, but now they're angry, and they are leaving immediately for Los Angeles, so maybe that's why they're not helping Marty take anything into the house. They have places to go. And Marty says, I still didn't blame them. I soon left Palm Springs for Bel Air with a couple of the guys who were at the ceremony. So Marty's telling us that this young married couple, everybody leaves them alone. Everybody leaves and leaves them alone. And maybe everybody's mad at them, but as far as Marty knows, they're alone now. Now, to me, there was always a point of the night for a married couple when we all purposely left and left them alone, or we sent them on their way alone. That's part of the tradition as well. I guess everybody was going to stay. I don't know. But Marty seems upset that on Elvis's wedding night, Priscilla and Elvis end up being alone. I'm thinking they kind of wanted to be alone. And when you really think about it, maybe this was the only way that they could be alone, as if all the guys were so mad that they left. I don't know. It's kind of amusing to think about it that way, but it worked for Marty because he soon left for Bel Air. And so it feels like maybe Elvis and Priscilla are actually going to have some alone time together. And Luann says, I still say Elvis should have had older in the head women and that they could look after him better, and that this little girl would not know how or what to do in a marriage. I mean, that's a good point, and she's quite a bit younger than Elvis, so I'm sure she's not going to be able to live up completely to his expectations. She's already behind a little bit in that sense that she's young and inexperienced. And Gunbrit says, did Priscilla throw away her flower bouquet for someone for the next bride to catch? That is an excellent question. I have not seen that story told by anyone yet. Maybe I'll run across it at some point, but I have not seen that said. Luann says that, and Miriam both say that's a good question. It is a great question because that's definitely one of the traditions of a wedding. And who caught that thing? Now I wonder too, who caught it? What Red West says is, I just wanted to get straight back on a plane to Los Angeles. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have any money on me. So I had to borrow $50 from a Memphis jeweler, Harry Levitch, who had come down to lay on the ring. As it happened, the plane I got was the same flight that the rest of the wedding party caught. I didn't say two words to anybody. Vernon and Dee were on the plane, and we didn't even exchange a glance. There is a massive amount of information in this one little paragraph, and I don't think Red understands that he's telling us any of it. Red's communicating to us that he was very angry. He wanted to leave immediately. He booked a plane. He could not pay for the tickets because he didn't have the money. He borrowed the money. When he got on the plane, turns out it's the same plane because there's only one plane that's going back to Los Angeles. I mean, how many flights travel between Los Angeles and Las Vegas each and every day in 1967? Well, I'm thinking one in and one out. And the one out is the one that everybody else is on. And Marty even names it as the same kind of plane, so it might even be the same plane. I don't know. But Red's now on this plane with everybody else. But let's go back to the beginning of what he says. I just wanted to get straight back on a plane to Los Angeles. Okay, Red's mad. He wants to go back home. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have any money on me. Red has traveled from Los Angeles to Palm Springs, where Elvis lives, and then Palm Springs to Las Vegas. Red has his wife with him. Red doesn't have any money. Red works for Elvis and makes decent money. Red works in Hollywood and makes money in Hollywood. Red does have expenses like anybody else. But what Red's telling us is that he came all the way to Las Vegas with his wife, and he expected Elvis to foot every dime of the bill. But he came to his friend's wedding, and his friend's going to pay for everything. Now, I've been to a lot of weddings, and I do expect them to actually, put out the party. And that's what we have, is whatever they put out, that's the party, right? And then we celebrate. But in this case, there's a lot of expenses that go with this. And Red doesn't have $50. Now, maybe he's spent it all in the casino. I don't know. He said he was waiting in the room the whole time. but he has to borrow it from Elvis's jeweler. So Red knows Elvis's jeweler independently of Elvis. So it's not exactly as if he's getting the money from Elvis's friend. Red and Harry have another relationship that goes back further than Elvis. Harry has known Red since he was a teenager. So Harry loans him the $50. Then he purchases the plane ticket for him and his wife. Now they're on the plane. It's the same plane everybody else is on, which means if he had just waited, he didn't even have to go to the reception. If he had just waited, he would have got on this plane with everybody else and he wouldn't have paid the $50 that he didn't even have, and that he borrowed from somebody else, but that he had expected from the very beginning that Elvis would completely pay for. I mean, there's a lot, I think, packed into this that Red doesn't understand. He has revealed to us with this statement. Vernon and Dee are on the plane and they don't even exchange glances. Whose responsibility here would it have been to make that exchange? Would it have been Vernon's, Elvis's father, who just came from the wedding that Red refused to attend because he couldn't come to the ceremony, so he refused to come to the reception? Is it Vernon's place to apologize for Elvis? Has Vernon done something wrong? I mean, it sounds to me like Red could have gone up and talked to Vernon at any point. But he chose just as well as Vernon did not to make that exchange. And Vernon might have been laughing about the whole thing if he knew about the $50 situation. But I'm sure eventually Vernon figures out he didn't pay for that plane ticket for Red. And that probably tickled him a little bit. But that's the end of today's episode. We've come as far as we can this time. We're going to return to Palm Springs in the next episode, and we're going to be just a couple of days away, Elvis time, from getting back to the Circle G. So until I go, or until I see you all again, I'm going to let you go with a song. And this song will be about everything that Elvis gave, and he gave away his heart. And it's really about money that he raised for the American Heart Association. But I think it's really about all of Elvis's life. And you all, thank you so much for coming. And you keep on taking care of business.
Midnight lights, rhinestone fire, Arabian soup, burning with desire. He hit the stage like thunder rolls. Vegas shook and the story unfolds. Charlie's birthday, crowd went wild. He cracked a joke and sang with style. But just before he sang Hurt So Deep, he stopped the show and made us weep. He gave away his heart, not just a song, diamonds and gold, where the love belongs. Rings and shades from the man backstage. He healed the broken, he lit the flame. Oh, he gave away his heart, and I saw it all that night. Blackened hair, the man stepped near. Elvis smiled, the crowd could hear. Thanks to you, we raised the light. 17,000 hearts took flight, then back behind. that held his sacred time. He gave away his heart, not just a song, diamonds and gold. Where the love belongs, rings and shakes from the man backstage. He healed the broken, he lit the flame. Oh, he gave away his heart, and I saw it all that night. He didn't need applause to know his worth. He gave away his soul in Vegas mirth. Not just a king, but something more. A man who knew what hearts were for. Gave away his heart, not just a soul. Pieces of love where the brave belong. Ritual gifts from the man backstage. He saved the hurting, hid the flame. Oh, he gave away his heart, and I'll never be the same. I was there, I saw the rings, I saw the light. Gave away his heart, and it burned so bright.